Hannah always took her poodle named Cotton for walks in the park. She noticed a guy named Tom frequently walking his bulldog named Bear. The two dogs always rushed to play together, but Hannah and Tom only exchanged polite small talk. One day, Cotton and Bear ran off together, dragging a long leash that somehow tied the two owners firmly together. Forced to search for the dogs as a pair, they finally found them sleeping soundly next to each other. Tom looked at Hannah and said, "Maybe Cotton and Bear knew we needed to spend more time together." They never walked their dogs alone again. Happy ending. Hannah and Tom got married, and Cotton and Bear became the fluffy ring bearers. Ever heard of a dog playing Cupid? Well, get ready for a story that's almost too cute to be true. Meet Hannah and her adorable poodle, a little fluff ball named Cotton. Every single day, like clockwork, Hannah would take Cotton for a walk in their local park. It was their special routine. And every day they'd see the same duo. A handsome guy named Tom and his charmingly grumpy-looking bulldog, Bear. Now, the funny thing was, while Hannah and Tom were stuck in the land of polite nods and awkward hellos, their dogs were practically soulmates. The second Cotton and Bear spotted each other across the green, it was like a scene from a movie. They'd bolt towards each other, tumbling and playing with pure, unfiltered joy. They were best friends, no question about it. Hannah and Tom, on the other hand, they'd just stand there, holding the leashes, exchanging small talk about the weather. "Nice day, isn't it?" "Yep, sure is." You know the drill. It was a classic case of the dogs having a much better social life than their owners. Hannah often wondered about Tom. He seemed kind, and he was obviously a great dog owner. Bear was always so happy and well cared for. She'd find herself glancing over, catching his eye for a split second before they both quickly looked away. It was this strange little dance they did every day, full of unspoken words and missed opportunities. She'd go home and tell Cotton, "Why can't our humans be as brave as we are?" Of course, Cotton would just wag his tail, probably thinking, "Don't worry, Mom, I've got a plan." Little did Hannah know, Tom was having the exact same thoughts on his side of the park. He thought Hannah had the most beautiful smile, and he loved watching the gentle way she handled Cotton. He'd practice conversations in his head on the way to the park. "Hey, Hannah, I was wondering if you'd like to get coffee sometime." But when the moment came, the words would just get stuck. All that came out was, "Bear really seems to like Cotton." It was frustrating. He felt like a teenager with a crush, completely tongue-tied. Bear would just look up at him with those big, soulful eyes as if to say, "Dude, just talk to her. I'm doing all the hard work here." This went on for weeks, maybe even months. The dogs grew closer, their playtime more, and more enthusiastic, while their owners remained friendly strangers, separated by an invisible wall of shyness. It seemed like they were destined to just be the other dog person at the park forever. But one sunny afternoon, everything was about to change. The air was crisp, the sky was a perfect blue, and Cotton and Bear were feeling particularly mischievous. They were playing their usual game of chase, weaving in and out of trees, when they decided to up the ante. In a flash of fur and pure chaos, the two dogs took off. But this time, they ran in the same direction, one right after the other. The problem? Cotton was on one of those extra-long, retractable leashes. As he zoomed past Tom, the leash snagged around Tom's legs. A second later, Bear, not wanting to be left out of the adventure, bolted after Cotton, his own sturdy leash wrapping around Hannah's ankles. Before either of them could even process what was happening, they were yanked off their feet. There was a yelp, a tangle, and a thud. Hannah and Tom found themselves in a heap on the grass, hopelessly and hilariously tied together by the two leashes. They were literally bound at the ankles and wrists, a tangled mess of nylon cord. For a moment, they just stared at each other in stunned silence, their faces inches apart. Then, the absurdity of the situation hit them, and they both burst out laughing. It was a real, genuine, can't-breathe kind of laugh. The awkwardness that had hung between them for so long instantly evaporated. "Well," Tom said, still chuckling as he tried to untangle an arm, "I guess our dogs decided we weren't moving fast enough." Hannah laughed even harder. "I think you're right. This is their version of a not-so-subtle hint." Now, they had no choice but to work together. It took them a good 10 minutes of clumsy cooperation, bumping into each other and giving instructions like, "Okay, move your left foot, no, my left." They were finally forced to communicate, to get close, to break down that barrier. By the time they managed to free themselves, their dogs were nowhere in sight. Panic set in. "Cotton!" Hannah called out. "Bear!" Tom shouted. They looked at each other, a shared worry on their faces. They had to find them. Together, they started their search, side by side this time, calling out the dogs' names. They checked behind the big oak tree. They looked near the pond. They even asked a few other park goers. As they searched, they talked. Really talked. They talked about their jobs, their favorite movies, their dreams, and of course, how much they adored their furry best friends. It felt so natural, so easy. They couldn't believe they'd wasted so much time on small talk about the weather. After what felt like an eternity, they ventured into a quiet, secluded part of the park, a little grove of willow trees. And there, nestled in the soft grass, were the two culprits. Cotton and Bear were curled up together, fast asleep, looking like two little angels. Bear's big head was resting on Cotton's fluffy back, and they were snoring softly in unison. They weren't lost at all. They were just napping. After their successful matchmaking mission, they had apparently decided it was time for a well-deserved rest. Seeing them like that, so peaceful and content, Hannah and Tom just stood there smiling. The relief was overwhelming. Tom turned to Hannah, his eyes soft. "You know," he said quietly, "I think they knew. Maybe Cotton and Bear knew we just needed a little push to spend some real time together." Hannah's heart did a little flutter. "I think you might be right," she replied, her smile reaching her eyes. "They're much smarter than we give them credit for." From that day on, they never walked their dogs alone again. Their daily park visits turned into dates. They'd walk Cotton and Bear, then grab coffee, then dinner. They discovered they had a million things in common, and the chemistry that had been simmering under the surface finally had a chance to boil over. It turned out their dogs were onto something all along. And a couple of years later, Hannah and Tom stood at an altar, surrounded by their friends and family. As the moment came to exchange rings, two very special members of the wedding party made their way down the aisle. It was Cotton and Bear, trotting side by side, each with a little satin pillow attached to their collar. They were the fluffiest, most handsome ring bearers anyone had ever seen. They had brought their humans together, and now they were there to see it through to the happy ending. Hannah and Tom got married, becoming one big happy family. All thanks to a poodle and a bulldog who decided to take matters into their own paws. So, what do you think? Was it just a crazy coincidence, or was it a brilliant matchmaking plot cooked up by two very clever dogs? Do you think this is a reasonable explanation for how they got together? It definitely makes you wonder what our pets are thinking. If you found this story as funny and heartwarming as I did, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Thanks for watching.